This is the Farmington Town Board meeting of November 22nd. First thing on the agenda, we do have two public hearings tonight. First one is Farmington Market Center rezoning. It's been continued from October 25th. We have Michelle, do you have a legal notice on that?
Not with me, no.
I mean, we just extended the legal notice from the last meeting.
Every
in
time,
October
yes,
25th.
we've all been, yep, that's what we can do.
Okay, Ron, at this point, we want to talk about the traffic study first as part of that.
We have two representatives here tonight with us from Fisher Associates. And we have received one response to their report, but I would call on Fisher to kind of summarize what the report said, and they've also had the opportunity to review the DME response, which is the only thing we've had so far.
Great. Emily and Tim, welcome. Just state your name for the town clerk's record, please.
Tim Faulkner with Fisher Associates. Just to kind of give you an overview of how we got to where we are today. About a month and a half ago, we were asked by the board to review the traffic impact studies for completeness for the three proposed developments at 96 and 332, the Farmington Market Center, the GLN, and the GNA developments. And more specifically, we were asked to look at the trip generations and trip distributions for each of those developments. And there was a series of questions the board had asked us to look at and respond to based on the different phases of development, when they were going to occur, how big they were going to be, and where traffic was going to be distributed to relative to State Route 96, 332, and Mertensby Road. So also within that, we were also asked to look at what the impact was for the reconfiguration of the existing FMC driveway to a right in, right out, and all that left turning traffic moving to the new proposed intersection of Route 96 and Mercier Boulevard. And then finally, we were asked to look at, the potential for a new traffic signal at Mercier Boulevard and 332, and when that could potentially be warranted in the future. So after we kind of went through and looked at all of the analysis, we provided the letter to you and to the board with the results of our analysis and showing what each share of development was going to be adding to the Route 96 and Mercier Boulevard intersection. And from that, we also looked at that traffic signal warrant and really kind of determined, based on just the traffic that's going to be generated by these three developments, that traffic signal at 332 and Mercier Boulevard would not likely be warranted until full development of all three of the developments that were going to be built. We also looked at what how much traffic was going to be generated by each of those developments at the 96 and Mercier Boulevard intersection. And really, GNA has a small component of that. The majority of that traffic going through that intersection is going to be from the FMC and the GLN developments. And it roughly figures out to be almost a 50-50 split. So we're in the process now. Just recently, we were asked by the board to come up with a independent analysis of the proposed mitigation at that intersection, what it would look like, how it would operate, independent of the previous analysis that were done by the engineers for each of the proposed developers, and then also to come up with an independent cost estimate of how much that signal would cost. So ultimately, in the end, the board and the planning director could come up with what the fair share is going to be for each of those developments to pay for that signal, along with any other improvements that are going to be needed. So that's kind of where we stand right now.
Thanks, Tim. Any questions from the public? Staff? Ron?
Yeah, I did talk with Zach Starkey at the regional office of DOT. They are still reviewing all of this information and trying to set up a meeting with them for next week. Hopefully, we will have their thoughts. The question that's before everybody right now is the DOT. And one aspect is said you could build the first phases of both at Farmington Market Center and GLN and not require or warrant a signal being installed on 96. Other traffic studies have said, you know, at the time you build up both phases, you're going to need a traffic signal. I think Fisher supported that conclusion as well. So the DOT is reconsidering their previous commitments that they made, and hopefully we'll have some information for it. That's all important to us from the standpoint of whether or not there's any large impact being created by the Farmington Market Center joining and using the Mercer Boulevard and Route 96 intersection. So as far as the equity question, that's something that we're working on, and hopefully we'll have some amenity issue here to discuss when we meet in December. I've drafted, because I had not received any other comments from anybody, a resolution tonight to continue this to allow the completion of Fisher's work and to allow the DOT to weigh in and to provide you, the town board, with information that you feel that at least I feel is necessary for you to make a determination of significance under seeker. And that's what we're looking at here.
All right, we do have a lot of people online. Does anybody online have any comments on this first public hearing?
What was the, this is Mike Phillips. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Just wondering, I came in a little bit late, so I heard about the traffic light and I wasn't sure if this is what this item is about.
Yeah, this is for the Farmington Market Center, the Tops property, and to the east, GLN, which is promoted by Lefroy's company, or 4 pads on 96 and building the beginning of Mercer Boulevard off from 96 and going south through their property.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions at this time.
Anybody else?
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. My name is Corey Auerbach from the law firm of Barclay Damon. Thank you for allowing me to appear virtually at this public hearing this evening on behalf of the applicant, Farmington Market Center. Amy Dake from Passero Associates and Angela Ingracia are also appearing virtually this evening. So I just wanted to touch base briefly with the board regarding this public hearing. The board is well acquainted with the history of this project. I won't take you back through it because I know you're all well aware with it. There was at one point in time some proposed secret documents that were on the town board's agenda. Subsequent to those documents being on the agenda, some communication were received on behalf of GLN, and it raised some concerns regarding the sufficiency of the traffic impact study that had been prepared and submitted with the Farmington Market Center rezoning request. The implication was that the traffic impact study was outdated and the town board could not make a determination of significance based upon what was alleged to be dated information. I submitted a letter to this board requesting that no further action be taken until such time as we were able to respond to the letters that were submitted to the town board. In the intervening period, Passero Associates, Amy Dake, did update the traffic, the TIS with current data that took into account the background traffic from the GLN project that had subsequently been approved after the original Farmington Market Center traffic impact study was prepared. We did submit that document to the town board. And of course, the conclusion of that study was that there would be no potentially significant environmental impacts associated with traffic. During that same time period, questions were raised regarding a fair share or equitable contribution relating to costs specifically associated with the extension of Mercier Boulevard from 96 to 332. That extension was separately approved by this board as part of the GLN site plan approval process, wherein they proposed to make that connection as incidental to their approval by this board. I would propose that the cost sharing among the developers for this project and or the town and others is not a seeker issue related to the potentially significant environmental impacts of this project. That may be a question that's worthwhile and still needs to be addressed, but certainly the cost sharing among the developers is not an environmental issue that the negative declaration or the determination of significance would be contingent upon. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the extensive conversation that occurred between the town and Farmington Market Center in establishing what appropriate incentives might be pursuant to the town's incentive zoning law. That was an arduous process that included a number of back and forth between the developer and the town until we were able to come to some conclusions regarding what incentives were appropriate to make the zoning proposal work for the developer and for the town. Those recommendations went to the planning board back in March. The planning board issued their recommendations and report, essentially concluding that the proposal advanced the policies in the town's comprehensive plan. We certainly think it furthers the incentive zoning requirements and the criteria for incentive zoning. We will continue to participate in the conversation as it relates to the improvements that are brought into question before the board. But I did want to distinguish those important issues, which were the conversations between the town as the approval authority and the applicant seeking incentive zoning pursuant to the town's code. Those incentives that were negotiated between the town and the developer, the issues raised regarding SECRA and the environmental significance, which were addressed with the updated traffic study, and distinguish those from the questions that seem to be swirling around from the neighboring developer regarding cost sharing for a project that they independently brought forward before this board and had approved pursuant to its own design. So I appreciate you being patient while I work through that. Certainly, we believe on behalf of the applicant that the criteria for incentive zoning have been accomplished, that the proposed development furthers the town's comprehensive plan. I would echo the recommendations of the planning board regarding approval of the proposed incentive zoning project, and also that we have provided sufficient documentation to the town to demonstrate that there will be no potentially significant environmental impacts from the project. Look forward to continuing the dialogue and participating in the process. We certainly believe that the proposal furthers comprehensive plan requirements and that a negative declaration would be appropriate under the State Environmental Quality Review Act.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Town board, any comments? Ron, so before we get out of this public hearing, and I know we did have originally, we'd had a resolution to close the public hearing, but now you're saying we should continue it.
No,
A separate resolution for the traffic study.
the only issue that remains is trying to identify the amenity value for this project as it has been affected by relocating the intersection off their property. That was not part of the original traffic study that was done for Farmington Market Center. It, as you heard tonight, has been supplemented. As far as seeker goes, I believe we have not heard any more negative concerns about traffic. What we have heard is equity issues, which is not something seeker addresses, but it is something that we as a town board with the incentive zoning have to ensure that this project that we're looking at isn't going to negatively affect adjacent lands, and that's where the the study that Fisher is finishing up is going to help us with on that. I was looking forward to, any other comments tonight from anybody regarding the Fisher report or regarding where we're at with this project and its determination there as part 2 has been completed. So I think we can close the public hearing, and I think we can wait until we get the state DOT and the Fisher report to figure out, once we make a determination of significance, where we're going with the amenity values
Right.
for the project. You may want to ask if there's anybody else online. I don't know.
I will.
Okay.
Tim, any comments from
No, I have no other comments.
anybody else online, please? Any comments? Okay. Board, got any problems with closing the public hearing?
No, I mean, it seems like things have been probably kind of intermingled a little bit more just based on the discussion that the public hearing was just regarding the actual traffic impact. What Fisher addressed as far as they will also be looking at what is the cost, that is not anything to do with the traffic study or the public hearing. Gets a general discussion. That's a separate matter that we're working on. So that, like, Mr. Auerbach brought up, the seeker has nothing to do with when we determine a projected cost of the intersection. That has nothing to do with it. So those things kind of got conflated a little bit.
Right.
So to clear it up, yeah, what we're talking about for the public hearing is just the traffic impact study. Anything as far as intersection costs and stuff like that is a separate discussion.
Right. Okay, anybody else in the room here with questions or comments? Tim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We do have a resolution to close the public hearing. It'll be the first resolution on the docket. Next public hearing is the local law repealing existing chapter 74 of the Code of Farmington, adopting a new chapter 74 for the administration enforcement of the New York's Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code and State Energy Conservation Code. And that was published on a legal notice, right? Thank you. Who wants to,
Can I read it?
well, I think I just covered it, right? Or,
Well,
is there more?
it just lists more than what you said.
okay,
Okay. Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the town board of the town of Farmington on the 22nd day of November of 2022 at 7:01 PM at the Farmington Town Hall, 1000 County Road 8, Town of Farmington, New York, regarding the adoption of a local law which will repeal the existing chapter 74 of the Code of the Town of Farmington and adopt a new chapter 74, providing for the administration and enforcement of the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code and State Energy Conservation Construction Code and the new chapter 74 to contain regulations pertaining to the following: purpose and intent, definitions, code enforcement officer and inspectors, building permits, construction inspections, stop work orders, certificates of occupancy and certificates of compliance, notification regarding fire or explosion, unsafe buildings, structures and equipment and conditions of imminent danger, operating permits, fire safety and property maintenance inspections, complaints, condition assessment of parking garages, climatic and geographic design criteria, record keeping, program review and reporting, violations, fees, and intermunicipal agreements. Any resident of the town of Farmington shall be entitled to be heard upon said local law at such public hearing. Copies of said proposed local law are available for review at the town of Farmington Town Hall, 1000 County Road 8, Farmington, New York. This by resolution of the town board of the town of Farmington.
thank you.
There.
There's a lot more words. Augie, you're like our fire inspector. You want to start out with that portion?
Sure. So part of the adoption of this new chapter 74 for the fire prevention and building code, there's a lot of law, legal jargon in that. that I'm not going to get involved with. I'll let Dan touch on that. As far as the local portion for the town of Farmington, part of that is adopting a more restrictive sprinkler ordinance in the town of Farmington for all commercial buildings. That ordinance essentially takes the New York State Fire Prevention Code and cuts the requirement in half. Meaning any new building that we're seeing right now that's commercial would have to be a sprinkler building. I did reach out we have a couple members from the fire department here in support of this. There's also been letters generated from the Victor Fire District, the Manchester Fire District, and the Farmington Fire Department in support of this local ordinance. And to touch on it very quickly, I submitted a letter to the town board as well, expressing my support for this. And the biggest thing is volunteerism is dwindling. We're not seeing the volunteer numbers that we used to 20 years ago, and I'm sure our gentleman here from the fire department can speak to that as well. I see that in my personal life in the fire department, and I see that in my professional career with fire departments we deal with on a daily basis. So sprinkler systems will give the gentlemen and ladies fighting these fires, responding to these emergencies, more time to get there to respond to these emergency scenes and essentially preserve life and property. That's the biggest thing here, is preserving the property. State code, the state of New York will even tell you it's the bare minimum. So it's not if you build something to code, that's great. It's the bare minimum requirement. That's what everybody builds to, because that's the cost effective way of building. Yes, these systems do obviously have money that are a part of it, but the savings that it's going to have is going to be detrimental. And I would be remiss to say that the Dollar General we had that just burned down, had there been a sprinkler in that building, I'm almost confident 100% that building would still be standing. And that's with the fire department had a great response time to that fire. I think it was within 6 minutes they had trucks there and it's actively fighting that fire. So again, it's mostly us trying to look to preserve life and property and give our first responders better time to get there and actually fight these fires with limited manpower.
Thank you. That cover it. Dan, are you on the line?
I am on the line. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're good. Thank you.
So Augie covered the fire side of it extremely well of the updates, but chapter 74, as Michelle read off in this for the public hearing, has a lot of information. It's a very big chapter. And some of the requirements that came from that are all coming from the state, updating their requirements of what each municipality has to enforce. And so this came out at the beginning of the year, and I've worked with Ron Brand and Jeff Graff in getting this created. The state did give us a model log that we could go off of, and then we critiqued it, and there's not much that we could change, but there was some areas that we could. On the fire side, as Augie just covered, it gave us the opportunity to add in some more restrictive code requirements, which again, this stemmed from some of the fires that we've had, and all of them fairly close to Farmington Fire Station 2. Dollar General, as the fire marshal mentioned. The other one is the America's Best Value Inn. Both of those buildings we're looking to build back with sprinklers in them. And talking to Jeff Harloff, our coordinator from the county, he made it clear that especially the Dollar General would still be standing if it had sprinklers. So this is real important, and we appreciate the board considering this tonight, and hopefully we can move this forward to the state level with a petition and get this approved. On another note, Victor is our neighboring town, obviously, that does have this more restrictive code in. and they've had very good luck with this in preserving buildings over in that municipality. So that's my update on the presented local law for tonight.
Thank you, Dan. Either member of the fire department like to make a comment? Chief?
I'm totally in favor because it's certainly, as you mentioned, especially during the day, our response is supposed to be about 5 or 6 minutes, but then again, there's a lot of things that deter that. And we still respond, and if we don't respond in a timely fashion, they'll call it quickly. Dispatch, but I'm in favor of it because if sprinklers that work well, give it at least simmer it down to where it doesn't get any worse, and then we're able to get there and finish it off. And, again, our timing is, it'd be nice if we had people there, but and the ones that do live close, they're doing things during the day. Prime time after hours, we get a little more response. Middle of the night, who wants to get up? But the idea is that I am very much in favor of seeing if we've had sprinklers in certain buildings, like the Dollar General, certainly that would not have been a total demolition parking lot. It would probably made it a lot less. And we've had other situations where a long time ago, the benefits they helped us. It's kind of our friend, whatever. It starts the process, and once we get there, then we can go forward and finish the job. But it's, I'm all for it. I think it's a good thing. Our numbers are low. We are getting new numbers periodically, but they have to be trained. It's not, they don't come out of the box ready to go. We got to go through the training classes, in-house training, things like that. And, we're still maintaining our new list, so it's some of us are getting a little bit into things that's going down a little bit. Anyway, I'll let Tom talk to that. I just basically want to speak in favor of this. As people say, with numbers and our response time at Dollar General was real good. We still had a concern that's why we did end up losing the building. Said and done. My opinion of it, most importantly, is people that were shopping in that store, then sprinklers were very well with the public an opportunity to get out. To me, it's a life-saving consideration.
Right. All right, thank you. Anybody else in the public have a comment? Anybody online? Going once, going twice. All right, we'll close the public hearing, the local law, local law 74 and adding a new 74. At this time, I'd like to call the official town board meeting to order. If everybody would rise, please, for the pledge of allegiance. And Don, would you lead us, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take it out. First item on the agenda is the approval of the November 9th minutes. So moved by Mike. Second by Steve. Comments, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And one abstention. Privilege of the floor or public concerns? Any privilege of the floor or public concerns at this time? Larry?
Board recommendation. Things they didn't take into consideration, the points that were brought up at the meeting. They never gone out and looked at the land and see. Just to go, I want to say I'm not against it at all. I'm against their land all supposed to be on the look at, no matter which way, where they put the pond, they're going to look at the. I don't know what it is, they don't found the fall before we live in this. Outside, there's no turn, that's around, that's on line for farming. Maybe a bit, the railroad, and then that's the. It's gonna, the county talked about moving the range and. It's gonna slow down and all the other, more water coming. We already did a heavy runoff, construction in South Carolina. Every year. We are in the drainage district. Nothing being done like this. Like what in how long behind the first farm, railroad. Drainage was underneath the railroad. We need for the. If you borrow more water. I think there should be some consideration.
Okay, so we've had a couple of conversations on the drain. One is, I want to remind everybody, there's a meeting next Tuesday night here, Ontario County Highway Department and their engineers are going to talk about the County Road 8 improvements. And next year in 2023, they plan on replacing some of the pipe culverts along County Road 8 from 96 to the Wayne County line. And then in 24, they plan on rebuilding, repaving, new guardrails where it's needed. That'll be part of the 24 project. So they'll be here, I think it's 7 o'clock, and be able to answer any questions on their project for the public. One of the problems we struggle with is that years ago, when we tried to expand the drainage district to the east of County Road 8, we got a lot of back push complaints, comments, and they didn't want it. And some of it was from the farmers. So the town board years ago didn't expand the County Road 8 district. So legally, we can't work on the drainage east of County Road 8, except for the road right-of-way areas, the same way with the county. Ron and I have been working with Ontario County for 4 or 5 years to bring a joint coalition together of, it starts in the Bristols and comes through Bloomfield, comes through Victor for some of that water flow, through Farmington, and then east through Manchester, and eventually goes into Wayne County. So until the last 4 months, we hadn't made much progress. I mean, the county had put a plan in place, but hadn't been able to rise to the top where they can spend some time on it. So we have worked with Ontario County Planning Office. They do plan to meet at some time with all the municipalities and discuss the overall issue, go for some grant money, to have a study. And then we suggested maybe, a countywide district, drainage district, or a northwest or west side or east side drainage districts, just so that it doesn't fall on the individual towns. But again, that's down the road for that. Dan, are you still online?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so I know we had this conversation a couple meetings ago, but just review the process through the planning board for any new development as far as water runoff.
Yeah, I can talk about that. And every development that we get into the town has to, per our MS4 requirements, no matter where it is in the town, can't discharge more water off of that property than the current situation. It has to be equal or less. And most of the time after MRB reviews it, it's actually in a less situation. And that's from retention and the treatment of the water on site with ponds and rain gardens. And there's a whole bunch of things that has to go through our engineering firm and for our MS4 programs. So with all these projects that we're looking at, we look at drainage. It doesn't matter where it is in the town.
Thank you. And we do have the developers and their engineer here tonight, because we are going to discuss the project a little bit. But I can't promise you until we see their plans. When they get through the preliminary and final, we'll basically know where that water runoff is going to go and how it's going to be retained. But the railroad is, I believe, Ontario County. I would say them or Finger Lakes Railway, Finger Lakes Railroad. Yeah,
Is that in the drainage district or is that?
no, it's you're talking on the west side, right?
It's the railroad. Train that goes under the railroad is far. Like on. And water gets turned because it can't go to the east. Turns it back off. And when the county opens up these drains and makes them bigger or whatever they do, it's gonna flood up on the path. It's the middle of summer before we get back and cut the grass and all that.
Right. All to be considered.
We take a look on the GIS system and just see whose it is and maybe reach out to them.
Yeah. I think it's Finger Lakes Railway.
I'm not saying the second, but.
No, yeah. Ron, were you going to say something?
Yeah, Finger Lakes Railroad is the operator of the county-owned rail line. And the concerns that Larry is identifying tonight, drainage, sounds to me as though it's coming from the county land. And that, I would urge you to come next Tuesday night, is it?
Tuesday night, 29th.
And address that issue, because that's something they need to take into consideration. The other thing that I will say is that we, in the past, heard similar concerns about development and drainage from a project that Ryan was working on. That was Hathaway's Corners. If you recall the public hearings, everybody was concerned about drainage and flooding in their backyards. And, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but that seems to be a concern at the time of the rezoning. And I'm not speaking for Dan, but I'm not aware of any issues with drainage since those projects have started and improvements have been made. So what we're dealing with is existing runoff conditions from lands that have been actively farmed. And I think it's something that as we get more into the weeds with the power incentive rezoning project, we might flesh out some ideas and thoughts to complement the county's study as well.
Flush out. I like that.
It's kind of like the word pause the other day, you know.
Right.
I mean, all that aside, if there's a pipe that we know is clogged, we should figure out whose pipe it is, because obviously it was designed to.
Well, if it goes underneath the railroad, I got a pretty good idea who it might be.
Yeah. I just looked up and it's on our GIS, the tax map is Ontario County, but as Ron said, it's Finger Lakes Railway that that operates it. So we'll reach out, make a note.
Got it.
Any other comments? Don?
Yeah, I'd like, on behalf of, thank, the town board. Last week.
You're welcome. You and I talked many times about you getting up there to see her because you weren't sure how much longer she would live. She was up in age. And that was where, Star Lake or Plattsburgh, yeah. So, no, we've had too many of them and we have
Tonight.
we got two tonight, two. So I can't remember. Anything else on privilege of the floor, public concerns? Anybody online? Privilege of the floor, public concerns? Okay, reports of standing committees, Public Works.
Yep, Public Works met this morning right here in this room, 7:30. I'll start with water and sewer. The clay valve for the influent building has been installed. It just got some little bit of work left to do. Where our valve is supposed to be there on the 6th of December to finish up that work. The bioscrew pilot that was done up in Monroe County. We got the results back and they're reviewing them and we should have the answers for that very shortly. The cooling fans for the low lift pumps need to be replaced and MRB is doing research rebates that are available through NYSERDA for them. The Bell and Gossip pump is delivered and ready to be installed. And the lockout tagout equipment and gaskets have to be ordered before they do the installation. The replacement parts for the UV, we talked about that this morning. You still haven't received them, I believe. Still waiting on all that stuff. The quotes from Cook Iron have been received for the fall wash equipment. The generator in the plant has been tested now under load. And they saw a few minor issues and had them corrected while they did that. And that got that all tested. The water main replacement project on 332 and 96 is progressing well. Pretty well complete with the testing and stuff and connections to finish up there. Town Line Road water main project is now in service. They just got some service lines, some long sides and short sides left to do, but they got most of that done. The flow meters have been out and were inspected. And the data retrieval is to be scheduled and we should have that back shortly. There's a lot on the list here today. PS 25 level indicator failed, so they had to go out and diagnose the problem there. DOH inspection report has been received, and there's a few violations that are being addressed. The Hook Road water main repair, the spray in place. We talked about that this morning. Sounds like we may be waiting on them to go back in to finish that project up.
Warmer weather.
We didn't test right. Pump station time data will be stored in the cloud now. The grading and drainage project at the treatment plant is being engineered, not right now by MRB. We now are going to be working with multi-link for our billing system through BAS. That is it pretty much for water and sewer. Highway. Highway is doing their ongoing maintenance. They've been wedging on various roads, repairing some shoulders, repairing sidewalks on New Michigan. They've been putting out plow markers and stakes, marking some of the sides. The plows don't hit things. They've been working on the plow equipment, they've been mixing salt, getting ready, and I know they did a little bit of salt and one day when we had a little bit of snow. They've been repairing some of the stone dust trails at Hickory Rise. The parks have been out doing maintenance. They did a little mowing. Most of that was kind of mulching up leaves, so they would go into the soil. They were removing the tables and the trash cans from the parks, getting their plow stuff ready, winterizing the bathrooms, and doing the same thing, putting out sidewalk markers. They installed a bench in Retention Park, and they're also all working on some industrials at Beaver Creek. And that is it for them.
All right, thanks, Ron. Town operations.
Operations met this morning. There's 5 resolutions. We'll discuss them as they come up. The TAP grant project, starting to receive quite a few of the easements back for properties that'll be included in the TAP grant. Continuing to work on an intermunicipal drainage study, like we discussed earlier. 9 municipalities are involved with this, and we're looking at hopefully getting some FEMA funding to continue that study. Still waiting on Ontario County for their draft report regarding short-term rentals and Airbnbs, potentially putting together a local law and some regulations for those. And no word yet from the DOT about the no standing signs, and we continue to have issues with large vehicles parking along Route 332, generally right south of the Route 96 intersection, causing visibility problems for people exiting the plazas there. The rest of the report will be on file.
And just update the signs. We know they're on order now. We just don't know when they're gonna come. So, thanks, Nate.
Just like a piece of plywood spray painted in the meanwhile would be good, but
Yeah.
we'll wait.
Yep. Reports of other town officials, supervisor, yesterday I volunteered at the county Hopewell complex for probably the final COVID inoculation event. Went from 3 to 7 o'clock last night. This afternoon, I was over in Victor attending a public safety meeting. We had the Victor Farmington Volunteer Ambulance, Farmington Volunteer Ambulance, the Victor Fire Department, the Fisher Fire Department, and the City of Canandaigua. We also had the county administrator and the deputy county administrator in the building, along with Supervisor Marin, the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, and Todd Campbell, supervisor in West Bloomfield, who is the deputy chairman of the Board of Supervisors. So we touched a lot of topics, but mostly centered around fire and how the fire coordinator in that office can assist fire departments, and also in the 911 center for emergency calls, whether they be fire or ambulance. How's that going? You know, what can the county do to assist those agencies? There has been a couple studies out, one on the 911, one on the fire side of it, that are winding down, if not in the final product at the county. But this was just another meeting to get together, because Supervisor Mayor and I, we do meet once a month. We try to meet with the local fire departments and the ambulance corps. So more to come on that. It was good, very good discussion over an hour and 15 minutes. And second of all, yesterday, Dave Connie and I went down to the city of Canandaigua. We had a meeting with the city, town of Canandaigua, town of Manchester. Hopewell was not able to attend, engineers. And we talked about the intermunicipal agreement that all the towns that buy water from the city of Canandaigua, that's due the end of December for renewal. So we talked about that. We came to an agreement about very little changes and extend that agreement for 1 year with the commitment that the towns in the city have like monthly meetings to revamp a IMA that's 1997, I think, the date on the last IMA. Second part of that discussion was also the the water plant capacity, capabilities, the Department of Health issuing towns and Wayne County, violation notices because of our THM readings are up over the 80 parts per million, right? That's billion or million? Billion, thank you. And we get it at like 70 or 72 when we write it where we buy it from Canandaigua. So they realize that we've got to do more. They already put in their budget for next year. Forget how much, around 300,000.
Well, their reserve is 335,000.
Yeah, anyways, they got a significant bunch of money in their budget for next year for the engineering. And to look at all facets of how to reduce the THMs and then look at their overall water capacity. So besides putting aerators in their tanks, existing tanks, that's about a $1.7 million cost. That will definitely reduce our THMs. Another option is to look at extending the water intake into Canandaigua Lake to a deeper level, so they get a colder water and a cleaner water. So, those are just two items that they're going to look at. They're also, one of the larger tanks is a steel tank that is going to, in the next 5 years, need to be painted inside and out, so it'll be shut down. So, you want to work with their engineers and, do we do that? We paint the inside and out, put the aerator system in there, knowing that 10 years down the road, the tank might have to be replaced, or do we bite the bullet now, build a new tank, make a concrete tank, and, get a grant for a new tank and take the steel tank down. So there was a lot of good conversation, more to come. In the quarterly letter that the Canandaigua Farmington Water District residents get will continue for a couple more quarters until we know our readings are down. So we took one here last week, right, Dave?
We sampled last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday.
The results.
Yeah, so hopefully by next week we'll have the results on it. So that's all I have. Highway and Parks.
Not much more to add to what Ron had there. We've had guys out and anytime we can, out cutting dead ash trees, out on Yellow Mills. Cutting those down. We'll continue to work on that. Very short crew tomorrow, so I won't get much done there tomorrow.
Right.
I would just like to mention that, and I know you talk about the resolution later, but Tim Bauer and Asa Hoffman are both through their 6-month probations up. I'd just like to give them they've been working out very well. Good assets to the town.
Right. Thank you. Town Clerk,
In here.
Water and Sewer.
In addition to the new software we're getting for billing through MuniLink, I also finalized a meeting tomorrow for our purchase from Badger for our equipment side of this. We're getting some new state-of-the-art meters, ultrasonic meters with encoders built in, and we're getting some new cell endpoints to deliver meter readings right directly to the cloud and thereby getting them right to our desk and the computer system. And we're meeting with that representative tomorrow to finalize that purchase, and we're probably going to be making another purchase very soon in the beginning of 2023. Supervisor Inglesby covered our meeting yesterday very well. I'm not going to drag this meeting out and bore you with any other details, but what we discussed with Canandaigua. If anybody has any concerns, please
get a hold of me after the meeting, I'm more than happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Building and zoning.
So again, I'll just touch on, we've been busy working on the chapter 74 updates. The ordinance, getting all that in place with Ron. I was out last night with the fire department at Comfort Inn and Suites for I don't know, an hour or so, hour and a half, for a sprinkler issue that they had, which has now been resolved temporarily until next week. So the building is, fire suppression system is fully functional in that building. Aside from that, just staying busy with permit applications and such.
Thank you. Planning board. Adrian, have anything?
They got a final signed site plan over on 332 for the dental clinic over there, and the other. Oh, God, it's a preliminary site plan for a parcel of land up on Hook Road, north of the thruway. The gentleman came in earlier and has to revise his drawings.
All right, good.
I hate those pop quizzes, you know, it just.
You did really good.
And Ron, anything else you have?
Sure, Fisher Associates has been working with yours truly to get the legal descriptions and map there and survey of the areas for sidewalks as part of the TAP grant. We're moving along on that. We've gotten responses from Simmons Rockwell on their 4 parcels of land that they own over here on 96. I've also drafted tonight, once we get the go-ahead from the town board, a local law to start the formal rezoning process for the power incentive rezoning project. And we will be meeting with the developers of some land in the town of Victor up by Klein Road and
Bortle.
Bortle.
Yep.
Road. They want to bring their subdivision into the town of Farmington and use some of the land here in Farmington to fill out their project. And the last thing is the chapter 74. You heard a lot about that tonight, but what I want to just emphasize is we have 30 days from the date we adopt the chapter 74, which I anticipate tonight, to submit this petition and notice to the state for allowing us to require sprinklers in these commercial and industrial buildings. So I've begun working on that. I've got a lot of exhibits to go through and have for you to receive at your meeting on the 13th of December. So we'll continue to be busy.
All right, good, thanks. Town engineer, Dave, welcome.
I'm doing a good job covering most of it this morning. Just a couple of things. We're working on the design for the drainage improvements of the wastewater plant and updating the plans for the next phase of the North Road water main project. Pump station 25, that is been upgraded and running, and assuming no other issues in the next week, we'll be reaching out to DC to get certification on that. And then the last one is 332 and 96. That job's been going on for a long time, but they finally got all the water main in, and we're hoping sometime next week we'll be able to get it filled up, get it tested, and we can get all the construction equipment out of there for the time being.
I'm sure the businesses will be glad to have their construction equipment gone.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. No assessor, no recreation. Tim here? Tim, anything from Conservation Board?
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Communications are on file. Reports and minutes are on file. First resolution is to close the public hearing of the Farmington Market Center incentive rezoning. So moved by Mike,
Second.
second by Ron. Again, what this will do is, at our next meeting, December 13th, we'll hopefully be able to do the determination of significance at that meeting, the secret portion. Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Who's a resolution for secret classification of actions under the provisions of 6 NYCRR Part 617, Article 8 of the New York State Environmental Conservation Law, entitled Adoption of Local Law, repealing the existing Chapter 74 of the Code of Town of Farmington and adopting a new Chapter 4 entitled The Administration and Enforcement, the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code and the State Energy Conservation Construction Code. So moved. Motion by Steve,
Second.
second by Nate. We've been briefed numerous times in our Public Works and Town Ops committees. Anybody have any further comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3 is a local law authorizing the adoption and the resolution of a local law operating in the repealing of the existing Chapter 74 of the Code and Farmington and adopting a new Chapter 74 providing for the administration and enforcement of the New York Fire Prevention Building Code and State Energy Conservation Construction Code. And this requires a roll call vote.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ron, second by Mike. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Engelsby,
Aye.
Councilman Bowerman.
Aye.
Councilman Herendeen.
Aye.
Councilman Casale.
Aye.
Councilman Holtz.
Aye.
Thank you. Number 4 is a resolution authorizing the water and sewer superintendent to purchase 1 new and unused Wacker Houston mobile light tower model LT4V4L at a cost not to exceed $12,562.49.
Second.
Motion by Nate, second by Mike. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
5 is a resolution authorizing the water and sewer superintendent to purchase 1 new and unused CAT 310 excavator with work tools model 31007A CFG 14B from Milton CAT at a cost not to exceed $144,460.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ron, second by Steve. Again, that $144,000 is split between the water and sewer budgets for 2023. Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6 is a resolution to pass the tax for 2022. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Nate. Necessary evil, the unpaid water and sewer bills. We have to pass that on to the county by the date in order for those amounts to be added to the town and county tax bill in January. This year it is up higher than some of the previous years. We didn't have a pass the tax on water the last couple of years under COVID, just sewer. But even going back 3 years, this is up a little bit in dollar amount from 3 years ago. All in favor?
Aye.
7 is a resolution authorizing the town supervisor to sign a proposal with Raymond F. Wager for a division of MMB for accounting services for the years 2022 and 2023.
So moved.
Second.
So as soon as we get into 2023, the auditors like to get in her March, April, May timeframe and spend time with each of the departments and with Janine, our accountant, and go through our book so that we hopefully have a report from them in the April, May timeframe. All in favor?
Aye.
8 is a resolution authorizing successful completion of probationary period for Tim Bauer, effective payroll 25 with a 50 cent an hour increase. Asa Hoffman, effective payroll 26 with a 50 cent per hour increase.
Second.
Motion by Nate, second by Ron. Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 9 is a long one. So, resolution accepting the town planning board's report and recommendation for rezoning of two parcels of land. Tax maps 29.00-213.100 and 29.002-14.000. Containing approximately 145.8 acres of land, some of it zoned RS 25. Residential, suburban, and LI limited industrial. This will be an incentive zoning project. An action authorizing the director of planning and development to draft a local law to authorize the town clerk to amend the town's official zoning map to prepare a referral and submit necessary documentation to the Ontario County Planning Board for its review and report of recommendation. That'll be at their December 14th meeting, so we'll see it probably in January by the time it comes back, right? Our January meeting?
Usually, yes.
Yeah. And then we'll schedule a public hearing, which will be known as the Power Property Incentive Zoning Project. Have a motion? So moved.
Second.
Motion by Nate, second by, is it Mike?
Yeah.
Mike. So I just wanna, because the developers and the engineer is here. I just wanna, for the record, we did receive a nice letter from BME Associates, Ryan Destro, who's here. And just basically some of your comments. The first one about the looped water main connection to Colette Road. And, you know, we'd like to have that timing of that third loop overall part of the preliminary design approval process. I don't think we have any problem with that. We'll just make it a condition of incentive zoning that you will have a third connection. Okay. The recommendation on open space areas, you had suggested, and we've had discussion, town ownership by way of a conservation district. Option 1, option 2, extending the single family lot lines into the open space areas for individual land ownerships under conservation easements. The highway superintendent doesn't want any more conservation easements in a suburban subdivision if at all possible. So we probably would approve the option 2. Right-of-way reservations, the applicant proposed to install a pavement stub that meets the International Fire Code turnaround dimension requirements at the reservation spot C, Charlie. We'll definitely take a look at that. I think it's a doable thing. And I did write on there requesting at the bottom of your page, the applicant talks about the pavement stubs not be required in the right-of-way reservations for this locations A and B and be part of this improvements for future site improvements. I think we just need to, in the minutes of the incentive zoning and on the map, you know, you suggested dedicating that as green space and until another project comes along is just so we don't surprise the neighbors. Some way of showing that that's going to be reserved or a different name ownership if there is a future development. Because we had problems in Auburn Meadows because there was 8 to 10 sections and some people didn't know they were going to have a park behind their house and some people didn't know there was going to be houses behind their house or the Auburn Trail. So we'll just work on that wording to, you know, make it more public, I hope. And then we'll definitely look at your sidewalk comments for the one piece of property that's stuck in the middle there. And you suggested that the sum of the 378,000 if the developer is going to give us for an amendment, maybe that we use some of that for that section. We'll definitely look at that. I think most of the other parts of your letters, don't see any problems with it. I did want to bring those out, comments for you and everybody else that's here in the room. You folks have any comments at this time?
Just that, since our last meeting, we did appear before the planning board. We do appreciate their comments on the fourth recommendation. And we look forward to working with both boards as we continue this process. And then while we're here, we do have some questions.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. And that's kind of why I brought your letter in, because that addressed the comments after the planning board. And so make that all part of the record. Staff, any comments on board?
Just so it's clear, this obviously a very wordy resolution, but this is in no way an approval of the project. It is simply just sending it to county planning, scheduling public hearings, just so the public knows. There's a lot of time for public comment still on that, for concerns. But sometimes these wordy resolutions get.
Good word. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Looking at you, Ron.
Yes. And yeah, obviously we always include the county's comments when we're making a decision, whether it's an incentive zoning or just a planning board approval. Any other last comments? All right, we had a motion in the second, right? Yeah. All in favor? Aye. And there's a resolution to recall resolution 328 of 2022 and to amend the dollar amount specified for Fisher Associates to substantiate the traffic reports received from 3 firms representing the Farmington Market Center, GLN and G&A developers.
So moved.
Second.
I think we've killed that. And we're just moving it from 6,000 to 10,000, not to exceed, for the additional study. All in favor?
Aye.
11 is a resolution of public space designation of the town of Farmington property.
So moved.
Second.
Motion in a second. Give me a second here. So across New York State and across the country, thank you everybody. There are individuals that come into public places with a video camera and try to entice a reaction. Guy is out of Western New York. If you go on YouTube, Erie County First Amendment audits, you'll find examples from all over the country with people doing this. So basically, the Ontario County Board of Supervisors brought it to the supervisors' attentions a few weeks ago. They put a policy in place. I kind of took their policy. I met with the staff this Monday morning, 8:30 Monday morning, and we put something in place that'll require a few signs. But we basically want to inform all our employees that they are here to just agitate you, and they have a right to video, except for the courthouse, video anything. And if you watch it, the guy I've seen in Western New York, it's always the same individual, but they just video all the posters on the walls and the office, what office they're going to go into and all that. And, sometimes they ask employees, what's your name? What's your job? Well, you're a public employee. Tell them, And sometimes he asks for the budget. He was at the county clerk. So can I have the copy of the county budget? Well, yeah. The lady took care of him and he flipped through pages and give it back to her. He was just trying to get a no. In Ontario County, Monroe County's been hit. Ontario County was just hit last week, but they'd already had the training out for the employees, except for one office, which I won't name. And in that office, the ladies panicked and hit the panic button and the sheriff showed up. They were thinking they were going to escort the guy out, but the sheriff department had already been trained and basically explained to the employees of that department is, hey, it's legal. They can ask your name and your job title and video the work area, the lobbies and all that. There are areas that aren't authorized for county employees, and there's our areas here that won't be authorized for residents unless they're invited in town buildings that we have. So that's basically what we did. And I did this memo and handed it out to all the employees. And then we tonight have this resolution that basically sets a 2-page policy in place. And obviously policies are always can be changed, but to get something out there approved by the town board, almost all the employees have been here. Some of the people are off this week, but we'll catch them. And just the public that, hey, it goes on. Some people have nothing better to do than do that.
Two things on that, Pete. Be polite and accommodating.
Yeah, basically,
They're looking for a gotcha video.
exactly. Yeah. So
It is also made clear for the public that if you are in the town hall taking care of public business and filling out paperwork or documentation, that these people are not allowed to record any paperwork that you're filling out that would have your personal information on it. So that's designated that they can, if there's nobody else there, they can stand near the clerk's window and record that area. But if somebody is filling out paperwork, they have no right to try and record any forms that you're filling out that anything personal. So that, and there is still some protection for the residents that are in here doing business.
right. And I've watched like 6 of the videos. I've watched like the first 8 minutes or something, and the guy's not controversial. I told Nate this morning, he actually goes in and videos the inside of police cars that are out in the parking lot. And he actually makes comments about, geez, they're really clean. They really take care of their cars, and there's others where he's commented on going through some of the older buildings, tour of the older buildings, people walk them around or let them go for free, freelance. He makes comments on how nice the building's been taken care of. It's, 100-year-old building or more, So, everybody I've seen that accommodates him, he's been fine. He's just trying to agitate people that he can put that up and then they sell ads and that's his income. Gets money for all those ads and then in the different ones. That's where we're at. Man.
Try doing that in the hospital, emergency room, see what happens there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, and there are, New York State has strict laws on videoing in courts. So that will be posted in our justice building. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. 12 is a resolution authorizing the town supervisor to sign the certificate of substantial completion for the Beaver Creek Park electrical contract with Concord Electric and approving the final payment.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Ron. And final payment. Not much. It's basically the retainage from the construction project. $4,400 out of $167, or excuse me, change order. Yeah, there's a change order in there, so it's $167,000. All in favor? Aye. 13 is a resolution authorizing court enforcement officer to enter a contract with Stream for their document conversion services and content management system at a cost not to exceed $74,959.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. So this is our phase 2 grant. The remainder of the building department and some of the water and sewer department for scanning those documents. And then In the December meeting, we'll have approval for a resolution to go for a third grant with our engineering firm. All in favor? Aye.
Can we block 14, 18? The budget amendments?
Not 14.
Or not 14.
I meant 15th is okay.
So
Next one. Okay, but we can do that.
14 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of the Badger meters, endpoints, encoders, and beacon software at a cost not to exceed 51,000.
So moved.
Second.
All right, as David mentioned, he's got about 60,000 left in the budget. So we're authorizing 51,000 here. That'll buy the basic Badger software. Get about 50 meters on order and endpoints and cellular connections, about 100 or so each. With the endpoints are the reading portion of the water meter. And then new this time with the software we purchased, we're going to have cellular readings on the newer installations of the water meters. So not only are we going to have that information transferred through the cloud to our system, but eventually the owner will be able to see their readings also. And it's for like a cost of $1 a month in the water bill, we'll cover that plus the cost of the newer meters. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I did request to block 15 through 18. Any objections? Okay, a motion by Mike,
Second.
second by Nate. Basically, this is year-end amendments in the sewer department, the Town Line Road, Rickard Road project to the Town Line Road to pay for the water line equipment parts that are on the water line at Town Line Road. Street lighting amendment, and then we have some personal movement of money in the assessor's office to overtime and contingent, parks, utilities, park uniforms, central data equipment and processing. And we took some of that from the medical insurance and the state retirement funds currently in the budget. All in favor?
Aye.
19 is a resolution authorizing the water and sewer superintendent to purchase 40 feet of 20-inch diameter DR 18 PVC water main at a cost not to exceed $5,880
So moved.
Second.
for 40 feet of water pipe.
Fortunately, this is a reimbursed cost from the.
Yeah, so this is part of the water main break on 332 a couple weeks ago. They did puncture our 20-foot water line, 20-inch water line, which we lost 10 to 12,000 gallons a minute. We got it shut off. The contractor will be getting a sizable bill.
They're responsible for the loss too, right?
Yeah, the bill will include the pipe, labor on site, not only us, but the town of Canandaigua Highway assisted us. And it'll also include the estimated water loss. All in favor? Aye. 20 is a resolution of sympathy for the Jet Lutheran family. All. Okay. And again, we're have too many of these. Whereas the town board was deeply saddened to learn the untimely passing of Jack Jet on November 11th, 2022. And whereas Jack's sister Paula Ruthven works with the town of Farmington in the role as the assessor aide. Now therefore be resolved that the town board adopts this resolution extending its sincere sympathy to the Jet Ruthven family, spreading its memory upon the minutes of this board meeting, and be it further resolved that the town clerk report a copy of this resolution to Jack's sister Paula Ruthven in Shortsville, New York. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. And I did mention we do have a second one that's not on the agenda. We just learned today. Dan Wasson, who's new justice clerk here in the town. It's his mother, Barbara Bai, that Wasson that passed away. So I have a motion there also, all.
Yeah.
All. Whereas the town board was deeply saddened to learn of the passing of Barbara by Wasson on November 19th. And whereas Barbara's son Daniel works for the town of Farmington in the role of town court clerk. Now therefore be resolved, the town board adopts this resolution extending this our sincere sympathy to the Wasson family and spreading her memory upon these minutes of the board meeting. And be it further resolved that the town clerk forward a copy of this resolution to Barbara's son Daniel in the Canandaigua, New York address. All in favor?
Aye.
That ends the resolutions, except for paying the bills. Item 22 is abstract 23 of 2022 to pay the bills. General fund, $217,802.31. Highway fund, $101,356.68. Beaver Creek Park, $14,414.33. Route 332-96 water line, $129,808.95. Sidewalk capital project, $660. Water tank repair, $22,115.80. Town line capital project, $552. Storm drainage, $11,156.69. Lighting district, $2,165.12. Sewer district, $155,107.62. Water district, $89,613.52. Payroll deductions, $6,885.64. For total abstract, $751,638.66. We have a motion, please.
We'll move second.
Motion by Steve, second by Mike. Comments, questions, abstentions, changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. No training under $100. I have nothing on the agenda for discussion. There are no executive sessions. Is there anything, any comments for either anybody online or in the room here? Any other public comments or concerns may not have been addressed earlier?
This is Mike. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say if I can speak to resolution number 9, the power insensitive zoning, if it's possible you'd like to hear from the public.
Sure.
I do have 5 questions for the town about the possibility of rezoning of the current farm producing property. And these questions don't have to be answered tonight. And I would just like to have them on the record to be taken into consideration. I know there's the plannings or the approval's not going to be tonight either. The first is, go ahead.
Yeah, just for the record, can I have the town clerk have your last name and address?
Michael Phillips, 1110 County Road 8.
Thank you. Go ahead.
The first is, does the current farmer know that this plan is being proposed to the town and that this farmland will not produce food anymore?
Yeah.
Second, go ahead.
I can answer that one real quick. The developers that were in the room tonight are, one of them is related to the property owners and they have purchased the property already for the development.
Very good.
Number 2.
Second is the food production going to be moved somewhere else within Farmington?
No idea.
Third is, does the town know how much farmland acreage is in Farmington at this point?
We do.
That's
That's,
still like over 70% of the town.
yeah, that's always tracked between the conservation board and the ag advisory board and our staff. But we do have that information.
Fourth, does the town know how much farmland acreage produces food in Farmington? So I know there's considered farmland acreage, but there's also the farmland that's not producing. But does the town know that the acreage produces food within Farmington?
Farmland is rotated throughout uses, so whether or not it's for food consumption or animal consumption, and it also gets rotated through to hayfield, stuff like that. So that number would be evolving every single year, depending on what crops were planted for that season.
And that was Councilman Bowerman for the record.
And
We
go ahead.
probably have, it might be a year old or 2 years old, but we probably have that information on active farms as part of the open space plan, but it would take some research.
And fifth and finally, does the town have an acreage rate of the farmland that changes into development zone year after year? Because I know that there's development or housing developments that are popping up year after year. So I was wondering if there was a acreage rate change.
Not
So
sure-
go
Not
ahead.
sure of the question there. Maybe you can reword that a little bit.
So if there's the acreage rate, so there's farmland that's currently this year producing some food. And then next year, that same farmland is then changed over into a housing development zoning. So that would be a rate change from the farmland would then decrease within Farmington and then change over to in housings. So I didn't know if there was a rate or a percentage of the farmland that changes from one year to the other into a housing development.
This is the first incentive zoning project that includes any farmland that I can think of. And like active farmland, there's very little that's been developed. Most of it is already zoned, some version of residential, and either developed as such, or if an incentive zoning project has come up, it's maybe they're looking for some changes to the residential requirements. But as far as converting a significant amount of farmland, which this is a good amount of this being farmed, but also it is still zoned light industrial and residential. It just happens to be farmed. Not often is it actually farmland that's being developed. Most of the recent projects, they've been just empty land that's not being worked at all. In the 8 years that I've been on the board, there's been almost no farmland that's been developed.
Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, those numbers of farmland taken out of production are in the last comprehensive plan, if I remember correct.
There, in there, the assessor's office has yearly reports on the ag exemptions that they grant. And there's also online the town's farmland protection plan. I would just like to urge the caller or the gentleman on the line to make sure he brings these questions to the public hearing if he wants answers to them.
Yes.
Yep. This is this is recorded, so anybody else that wants to view the tonight's meeting, they can also hear that information that you're asking for.
And finally, it's just, since I'm not a farmer, I don't know the current statistics. I would just like to hear from a current farmer that would have better statistics than I would, as far as the gained yearly and what would be lost yearly if this was to move forward. Because it is a significant amount, as we stated, 145 acres. And the reason I'm asking these questions, I just want to know the consequences of losing 145 acres of food production, farmland, that's going to be turned into housing development. That's all I
That's
have.
good. It's a good question. And then keep in mind that not all of that acreage is farmed. Some of it is swamp, has a large creek down through the area. Some of it is hilly, and then the property closest to Route 96 as part of this property has not been farmed. Because it was kind of a small business operation with here for quite a few years that nothing's going on there now. But I appreciate the questions, and we'll try and get some of the answers before our December meeting.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Anybody else? All right, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Second.
Motion by Nate, second by Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in. Appreciate it.